To delete the other one.
Oh yeah, I'm deleting the other one. Hello, I'm back at it again after some technical difficulties for our last attempt at a stream. But yes, this is the fourth episode of Buddy Banter. Buddy Banter is a pseudo monthly series that I have where I have a friend on to talk about a topic of their choice. The topics have been awesomely all over the place, and this topic that my good friend Yogi picked was the Kung Fu Panda movies. So I'm very excited to talk about that, but we're going to get plugs done at the beginning so we can get straight into talking about dumplings and Kung Fu. So Yogi, why don't you tell the people who you are, what you do, where they can find you, what you got coming up?
Well, as most of the people watching the stream probably already know, I am a man of many names, but few talents. I have a podcast called Through the Moon Door, on which I sometimes, when I don't forget it, introduce myself as Archmaester Buzzkill. It's a podcast all about George R. R. Martin's epic fantasy series, A Song of Ice and Fire. It can be found on YouTube under Through the Moon Door. Moon Door's two words, puzzlingly so, but just like it's spelled in the books. Then I also have a new podcast that I just started. It's called Troy Talk, which is all about chronicling the discography of Australian pop sensation Troy Sivan. It has nothing to do with any of the nerd stuff I usually come on other people's channels to talk about. But if you happen to be a fan of Australian pop sensation Troy Sivan, then I strongly recommend looking up Troy Talk. It's only 2 episodes out so far. I already had Amy on as a guest because she has to be a guest on
I
anything I
have
do.
to be a guest on everything, or else
Yeah.
it doesn't.
It's not
It's
like
not.
you don't have any other things to do, right? So yeah, I do that. Currently, I have no episodes lined up. I've been kind of winging it for the last couple of episodes because I've been busy with other things, so I can't unfortunately plug any specific event. But all the episodes that are up so far are pretty good. A lot of them have faulty audio because StreamYard hates me. I'm not sure if it's doing it right
And
now.
we are like, we did a dance to the stream gods before this.
Yes, it is because the whole thing we had. Most of you
uh
will have seen our attempt at making a Zoom stream that did not work out as we planned.
did not work out.
So let's just hope the audio works for this one. But yeah, I'm Yogi. You
Yeah,
can
and
find
I'm
me on
much more
Twitter at.
comfortable with StreamYard, so
Mm,
that this is good for me. But yes, I would so his link, Leogi's link will be in the description. You'll notice they aren't now. That's because I created this stream last minute because I thought I didn't need it, because I thought we were doing Zoom today and everything was going to be great, and I was going to wake up 2 hours before, but I ended up waking up 15 minutes before. So it has just been a day, Yogi, and I am so glad we are talking about Kung Fu Pandas movies, because if we were talking about something heavier, I I don't know what I would do because I'm all out of sorts. But we're talking about something that I really like to talk about, so that is
yeah.
great. So let me just quickly tell you all what's going on, what's coming up on the Amy Blackfire YouTube channel /podcast. Uh, Yay, Kelly says, I can hear you, and you both seem to be able to hear each other. How simple yet profound this ability is. Anyway, so what do we have going up? First of all, I said pseudo monthly from the beginning, and I'm living up to that. I've done 4 straight months of Buddy Banter. I am taking a break for April as far as this series, and I'm going to come back at you in May because it's my birthday month, and yes, I'm one of those annoying people who insists on a birthday month. And I am going to have, hopefully, if we can find a Euro-friendly time for everyone, I'm hoping to have all 4 of my buddies, obviously including Yogi, because after this he will be an official buddy. I'm going to have all 4 of them on to talk about a topic of my choice because it's my birthday. So I am going to, the topic I chose is talking about shows that we were obsessed with during our teens. So it doesn't have to have come out during our teens, but we were watching it while we were teenagers and we were obsessed with it. And so all of my buddies, including myself, are going to pick 2 to 3 shows and talk about it. And it's going to be very fun. So I'm going to have on Yogi and hopefully the 3 others, which are Lo the Lynx, Micah of Clark, and of course my good buddy John Webster. Please check out John Webster Film, aka Cinematic Realms. That is where I co-host. We're taking a break now, but we are about to relaunch as officially as a podcast. So we're going to have a very good time with that. I have a lot of A Song of Ice and Fire, His Dark Materials, Avatar Last Airbender coming up, and I'm going to start doing The Witcher, X-Men, and the Poppy War. You may have heard of it. You may have heard me talk about the Poppy War just a couple times. So we're going to have a good time. I'm not going to get into specifics. Please subscribe to my channel. You can find a little link on the bottom right, which is a little cartoon version of me. If you click that, you're subscribed. And if you hit that little bell, you'll know when I've uploaded something new or I'm going live. And please, if you're listening to this as a podcast, give me a 5-star review and like write something in the review. I have one rating on Apple Podcasts, and I'm glad it's 5 stars, but that's not a very stable lead. So I need more 5 stars on there. And if you could give me a nice review, I will read it out on my podcast if you review me and you are very sweet and wonderful. But if you say bad things about me, I will cry and not read it out loud. So that's the way it is. So Yogi, let's get started. First of all, we're talking about all 3 Kung Fu Panda movies. Should you be concerned about not having seen all 3 Kung Fu Panda movies, you may leave this stream, but I would prefer you stay and enjoy talking about how awesome it is with us. But if you are someone who is worried about content previews, what do they call them in layman's terms?
I think they're called spoilers.
Yeah, whatever. Content previews.
Spoilers.
So if you don't want to know what happens in Kung Fu Panda 1, 2, and 3, then maybe don't necessarily listen to this, but please stay because we love you. So Yogi, here is the first, it's always the hardball question that I throw at everybody. First thing, why did you pick this topic? What does Kung Fu Panda mean to you?
Well, I went through the previous episodes that you had done, and I looked at the topics that other guests have picked, and there were some very profound ones, like keeping politics out of fantasy and talking about the rise of turfism, and then there were harmful gender stereotypes when it comes to movie preferences, and I was like, oh boy, I better think of something good. But then Micah, my good friend Micah, luckily came on and decided to talk about DC TV shows, and so I was like, okay, it doesn't all have to be profound. That's good. And then just I was just at the time, it was one of those times where I'm the kind of person, I have a lot of obsessions, but none of them really last very long. So there will be times when I'm obsessed with. Right now, I'm in a Bob's Burgers phase. I've been watching a lot of Bob's Burgers. So if you had asked me yesterday,
is that one of your comfort shows, Yogi?
Yes. If you had asked me yesterday what I wanted to talk about on Buddy Banter, I probably would have said Bob's Burgers because it's just very fresh in my mind right now. But at the time when you asked me, I was watching the Kung Fu Panda movies because they are near and dear to my heart. They're some of my favorite movies of all time. I think the first one especially is one of those very few films where I would say it's a perfect film, just because I couldn't name you anything where I say would need improvement or what's wrong with it. It's just, I don't say perfect.
The first one is tight when it comes to storytelling and theme building, which is not always the case for a kids movie.
Yeah,
it does have the humor, but there's still they have to defeat Tai Lung. There's still a very driven plot force that's going on.
And so the reason why I like it, to be more specific, is it's actually it's got the same origin story as a lot of my favorite movies, which is that when I was a child, a small child, or early teenage years, my mother and my stepfather were living in a small flat. And they had, I was sleeping in sort of like their storage room that also had a bed in it, because they didn't have a lot of rooms. And it had a very old TV and a DVD player. And my stepdad had 5 TVs that were child appropriate. He had the first 3 Harry Potter movies, which remain my favorite Harry Potter movies to this day, just because I've seen them the most. He had the Fellowship of the Ring, and only the Fellowship of the Ring. I had seen the Fellowship of the Ring at least 10 times before I ever saw the Two Towers or the Return of the King.
So you had seen them set out on the journey many times.
And I never knew what happened after that first movie, but I kept going back to it and watching it because it is that good, and it remains my favorite to this day. Out of the Harry Potter, the Lord of the Rings movies. And then another one of the movies that they had was Kung Fu Panda, the first Kung Fu Panda movie that I had also seen when it first came out in the cinemas in 2008. So I was 10 when it came out. I watched it with my best friend. It was one of my first movie-going experiences that I can remember. The very first was Ice Age 2. I don't remember when that came out, but that was the first time I ever went to the cinema. But Kung Fu Panda, I remember watching it and thinking, wow, this is one of my earliest memories of watching something and really thinking about how it's a good movie.
Yeah.
Because children will kind of watch anything, But I was really sitting in that movie cinema and was really impressed with what I was seeing. 10-year-old me was sitting there like, yes, quite. The shot composition is quite exquisite on this film.
I can see you. I picture you like twirling a little bit of a like a 10-year-old mustache too.
Yeah, there was like
yes,
cigarette smoke in the air, and I was like,
got a cigar with your smoking jacket, of course.
No, it's a very good movie. My friend that I saw it with also liked it very much.
I obviously when I first watched I had only seen Kung Fu Panda, and maybe 2, but I hardly remembered it, and I had not seen 3. And I just enjoyed the crap out of watching this, Yogi, because I'm not gonna lie, I have 4 pages of notes because of the way that they used Chinese symbolism and then presented it to a Western audience is unlike anything I've ever seen with this kind of repackaging Eastern teachings for a Western audience, a young Western audience. So like you have the first one, I mean, all 3 are about believing in yourself, which is a very great theme.
It's a very common theme in children movies.
But themes of discipline and themes of the teacher-student relationship, themes of balancing your chi and inner peace. Like these are not necessarily themes that a young kid in America or England or Germany would necessarily be familiar with, like a child in East Asia would be. And yet they're able to present it in a way that is not confusing and that still is important. I mean, with the was it Kung Fu Panda 3 where you had Kai stealing everyone's chi?
Yep.
That's 3. The way that they're like all in jade and that he's like, it uses a lot of these really interesting concepts and presents them in a way that is so fun and that also doesn't, I don't think, for lack of a better term, bastardize the original idea. You know, you see a lot of things where here we go. I'm already throwing shit at the live action Mulan movie. The way that they use chi is really not cool and it's confusing. The way Kung Fu Panda uses chi is more respectful and yet fun. It's really weird balance that I think the writers of Kung Fu Panda have struck that I don't think and the voice acting alone, I mean, come on. This was huge for kind of Eastern style Western cartoon.
Yes. I mean, there's a reason why the movies are so popular in China. I think they're the first. Kung Fu Panda 3, I think, was the first animated movie where they redid the lip animation to fit with Mandarin because the movies were that big in China. And some Chinese government official actually complained about why such a movie that is so like profoundly dealing with elements of Chinese culture was made in America, you know, instead of in China. So they were kind of complaining about that.
I believe most of the writers are Asian American, though. So, you know,
yes,
I think
thing,
that more than anything is chef's kiss. It's like with Avatar: The Last Airbender, even though the main writers are Western, all of their advisors are Asian American or Asian. And that really that's the sweet sauce. You can have it headed by Americans and maybe they have a vision, but those details need to be taken care. You know, they need great care by experts. And I think that's trusting the experts is something that creates a good movie like this.
Yeah, you really wouldn't think that it's because it's kind of funny because the message of the movie, especially the first movie, is kind of you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. And the same is kind of true for the movie itself. Because if you hear there's a movie called Kung Fu Panda that stars Jack Black, and it's about a panda learning Kung Fu, you don't think that it's necessarily going to handle the East Asian culture with
yes
with care, but they do, and it's great. Yeah. And I actually love the title. I think Kung Fu Panda is a great movie title.
Kung Fu Panda is a great movie title. It gets your attention, and it's a panda who does Kung Fu. It's very straightforward.
And it's kind of a reference to like other Kung Fu movies, because they all have kind of like hammy titles usually, so it fits.
Like Shaolin Soccer. That's a great movie, by the way. It's a comedy Chinese movie where they use Kung Fu to be better at soccer. Anyway, football, if you will. I found it, so like of the 3, we've got Tai Lung, and then we have Kai Kai is in the third and then the middle is Peacock, Shun the Peacock.
Shun, yeah. Lord Shen.
I love how you're like, Amy, it's actually Shen. You know,
Well,
it's
that's
like
how they say it
Shen.
in the movie.
Lord Shen.
Lord
Lord
Shen.
Shen. He is so of those three. So we're gonna go with Tai Lung, the Prince Peacock.
Gary
I'm gonna call
Oldman
him.
Peacock.
Yeah, and then the last Kai, the cheese stealer. Which one is your favorite villain? And what about their arc interests you more than the other two?
That's a good question because they are three very different villains. Because Tai Lung in the first one, he's the antagonist of the movie, but he's really Shifu's villain more so than Poe's villain because his backstory is connected with Master Shifu and not really with Poe in any way. And then the second one, Shen, he is very much Poe's villain because he killed his mom, and he's specifically after the pandas. There's that whole prophecy thing about how Poe specifically is supposed to take down the peacock. And then in the third one, Kai, he's kind of Oogway's villain because his backstory is associated with Oogway, and he's kind of a threat to Kung Fu as a whole. So I think in a way, Kai is probably the biggest threat. I think.
Yeah.
I prefer Shen. Shen has the best voice and animation. I think Shen is probably my favorite villain. He's pretty great.
Well, darn, I thought we were going to have a cool thing where we both picked different ones, but I would pick Shun too. And I think it's because of his connection with the backstory of what happened to or didn't happen to, to Poe's family. This question of where I come from that is so prevalent in the second movie. And I'm going to get excited. It's about Eden Young. So I was just having a ball with all of the a warrior of black and white. Yes, it's because he's a panda, but it's also because he can bring balance to the world. Very Avatar: The Last Airbender stuff. Yeah. Symbology going
Shen
on.
Shen's a very Avatar villain.
Not to mention, he is the dragon warrior, right? The dragon is the symbol of the emperor, and Shun is the peacock, the symbol of the empress. So you can also do a little bit of a gender kind of dynamic look going on here, where there's this kind of it's a little patriarchal drink, but the yang, the male energy, is overtaking the yin, which has become too dominant because of this peacock, right? His need for domination of a Gongmun city, which Gongmun city is actually a city in Gansu province, and Gongmun means palace gate. So it also the city itself that Poe is returning to, that Shun is taking over, Shen is in itself representative of this idea of royalty and who deserves the throne. And as a Game of Thrones fan, obviously, Yogi, I'm all over that theme.
Yes, it is very Game of Thrones. The throne does look very cool. I like the way that, the movies in general, they have very good designs of things. From the characters.
The city designs alone, I pause
the city is
and
very,
just look at.
They step up the animation from the first to the second movie. They definitely step up the animation, and they just the effort to go through to animate, because the entire city is 3D rendered. There's no map paintings in the aerial shots. It's just the amount of work that would have taken is insane. And we should also point out that I believe that the second Kung Fu Panda movie was the first big studio animated movie that was directed by a woman.
Oh, I did not know that.
The same woman who directed the 2D animation opening of the first movie.
Okay.
Which is also great.
I like that. Yeah. So there's also something that I find interesting about this is the integration of the Furious Five, because they represent the 5 different styling files of Kung Fu.
Styling files?
Styling styles. The styling files, you know what they are. The fighting styles of Kung Fu. Right, we have the crane, the snake, the tiger, the praying mantis, and the monkey, right?
Yes.
So all 5 of them represent these Kung Fu fighting styles. And I just love the dynamic between Poe and the Furious Five, especially when he becomes the Dragon Warrior. How they're all like, all right, we got to get behind this fat panda now as the Dragon Warrior. And I love Shifu. So the fun thing about Shifu is his name literally means master. Shifu or Shifu means master. So he's literally master. So
Yes.
Master is like, hey Poe, you go ahead and teach the Furious Five now. I mean, this theme of teaching and being ready to be a teacher and being a good student and as the teacher knowing what your students need to succeed. That's a great theme that they did with the pandas, where he needs to teach the pandas to fight, but he can't teach them the way that he would teach others. He has to teach them the panda way, right? He needs to find what he has. That line that Shifu taught him, right? It's like, I'm trying to make you, not make you someone else, right?
Yes. It's kind of like this idea of finding your inner self is an important thing.
Sorry, Kelly said the patriarchy has caused me to realize my coffee is cold. Yep, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, everyone, for drinking to the patriarchy for me.
Yeah. Also, John in the chat says he misses 2D animation, and while they are 3D animated movies, all three of them have very good 2D animated sequences in them. Usually, it's flashbacks or dreams, and what I really like about them,
or
is
kind of
that
like narration intro stuff.
Yeah, like as soon as they fade into reality, they switch it to the 3D animation. It's especially well done in the first movie when Poe has that dream about being the greatest warrior ever, and he's in that, I don't know what that is, tavern, and then he gets attacked by bandits, and then he wakes up and he falls out of bed, and it's this really nice cut, and then it cuts to him being 3D. It's a good way.
The way that these movies use 2D sparingly but effectively is really impressive.
Yeah. The second movie intro is especially well done with the shadow puppet design, when they do the flashback for how the fireworks were corrupted into cannons.
I'm trying to think about, because the second movie definitely was harping on yin and yang, and the third one was harping on qi. I'm trying to think if the first one had a very specific Chinese theme like that necessarily, and I don't know. I guess mentorship you could use as the
mentorship
theme.
I mean, there's a lot of fans like to point out how the movies are a good trilogy because they deal with the body, the mind, and the spirit. So the first movie is really about Poe training. They really emphasize the physical aspect of his training when they have that cool training montage. It's him doing push-ups and learning how to fight, learning the physics of Kung Fu.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it works well to have Tai Lung not necessarily be a villain that challenges Poe on like an emotional level, because they don't really have any connection. It's just he needs to be stronger than him and defeat him.
He needs to skadoosh him.
Skadoosh him, yes. And then in the second one, it's the mind. So it's about Poe having to overcome this mental blockade that he has because he has all these repressed feelings from his past, and kind of like finding your inner peace. And then the third one, it's about the spirituality, where it's about Qi and it's the spirit realm.
Yes. Okay, I like that. I like that.
Yeah,
that kind of
works.
Trinity.
Well.
Also, if we could just talk about the first one for a second.
Yes, my favorite one, the first one.
I know, and I have a couple of thoughts as far as Chinese symbolism. So, which is another way to plug my content, of course, Yogi. Which is whenever you have Ugui, by the way, Wu Gui means turtle or tortoise. So his name is literally Master Tortoise. So
the names are not subtle, like Tigress.
The names are not subtle, and I'm here for it. Tigress, yeah. So Ugui, when he passes off away into the spirit realm, he's under this peach tree with the peach blossoms and everything. And we learn from the second movie that there's the spirit realm, and he didn't technically die because he's a kung fu master and he's awesome, right?
Yes.
But the peach tree represents immortality in Chinese literature. So if you were someone who was kind of familiar with that symbolism, then Uguay's passing is a little less sad, but more symbolically meaningful, if that makes sense. And also Poe's use of fireworks reminds me a lot of the Mulan scene. Whenever Mushu is like lights the fireworks and he flies after the bad guys with fireworks, that kind of remind me how Poe gets in the chair and then uses fireworks. The use of fireworks in kind of Chinese-inspired movies in the West, I've always loved, because it's very thematic with the fact that the Chinese invented fireworks, but also because of how useful these explosives are. And you even have with the is it is it Shun where he has to save Kung Fu from the cannon, basically?
Yep.
We also have this idea of explosives, right? Are they making Kung Fu obsolete? It's kind of a really fun little idea. And so the fireworks part with Po and the chair and everything, to me, kind of presages that a little bit. Because if Po hadn't figured out this way to use these fireworks, then technically he wouldn't have been in front of Oogway when he was pointing for the Dragon Warrior.
Yes.
But you have to do it like this. You can't do a straight finger because he's arthritic. He has this little claw. But I found that really interesting too, is like kind of, I would call a callback to a lot of other movies that Westerners would be used to that kind of take place in China, which would be the use of fireworks like in Mulan. I thought that was
Actually,
really cool.
If you think about it, it's kind of funny because we know from the second movie that Po was destined to defeat Lord Shen, and it was the peacocks who invented fireworks. And if it weren't for fireworks, Po would never have been selected to be the...
It all comes back around.
Yes.
I'm telling you. Yeah, that's
I don't think
really
they planned that,
interesting.
but it's a neat, it's a neat observation. Yeah.
But I also think that connection with Shun too, because there's a lot going on, and I don't want to necessarily get into it with Prince Peacock, if you will. His backstory is very, very Chinese symbolism as far as this idea of the son who has been banished who comes back to take the throne. But I love the way that they kind of change that and make it more interesting. But I think there's no secret ingredient. Okay, that is like the moral of the Dragon Scroll, right?
Yes.
I love that.
That's also the reason why I like the first movie the best, because it has the best message. How it ties in the whole thing with Mr. Ping, post dad, and his secret ingredient soup.
I literally, in my notes, he's Goose Dad. That's literally how I...
Mr. Ping, voiced by James Hong, who is a great actor who's been in,
we are not worthy of his talents.
No, he's been in hundreds and hundreds. I think he was in Avatar as well. He played he was in Avatar The Last Airbender. He played the guy who wanted to try Aang for Kyoshi murdering Shin
in the village.
Yes.
Yes, he has that.
Yeah.
It's justice. That means it's just us.
Yeah,
such a
exactly.
Good part. That's such a good... He's perfect for those parts. Yeah,
and he also pulls off the really, like... He's a real douchebag in Avatar, but in Kung Fu Panda, he's such a nice...
Oh my God,
wholesome,
he's the best.
Yes, he is. I especially love that in the first movie they never bothered to address that Poe's adopted.
They leave it for the next movie, which I appreciate because there's a lot going on anyway in the first movie, and I think the whole "Where Do I Come From" is an arc in its own, and you cannot force that into a movie that is already kind of packed with a lot of things. But I like that the idea of you open the Dragon Scroll. And it's like when they have those self-esteem things in high school where there's like they put a mirror, like a reflective surface, they tack it up on a board and you're supposed to look at it and say that you're special and you love yourself. And so I really appreciated that, where it's like, there is no special ingredient. You have to believe in yourself and then you make yourself special. You know?
To make something special, you have to believe it's special. That's a great message for kids.
It's a great message for kids. Also a great message for the stock market because like with Theranos, with I forget, Elizabeth Banks, I think is her name, where she's like, guys, I totally have this machine that does all these tests, and she was lying about it the whole time, so she was worth millions of dollars one day and not the next. They believed it was special, but it wasn't special. So we're teaching kids about the stock market too.
But it was great, and I really remember. Because especially when you're a kid, and it's such a common thing to have that kind of MacGuffin thing, the Dragon Scroll, it's going to give you the unlimited power. And the way they set it up in the movie, where they get to the point where Po is ready to get it, and you think, okay, so the Dragon Scroll is going to give him some. I mean, if you're an adult, you expect there to be a twist. But if you're a kid, you just think, okay, he's going to...
You got to get the thing to beat the guy. Yeah.
Yes. And then he opens it, and it's empty. And they're like, oh, well, okay, I guess. And then Master Shifu says he'll fight him. And Po goes away, and then Mr. Ping has that soup thing from the very beginning of the movie. It's just a really good structure and a good message of the movie. And that is, that's because why I like the first movie the best, and it's also why I kind of like the third one the least, or part of it, because there's very little in the movies that I really don't like, But what I really don't like is that the third movie implies that Oogway always planned to have Po be the Dragon Warrior.
Yeah.
Because it was like the whole panda thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I just much prefer the idea that it could have been anyone. And that anyone could have beat Tai Lung.
I prefer the every man, woman, or non-binary individual theory, which is that any person could have, if they wanted to save China and were willing to put in the work and dedicate themselves, that they could do it. It makes it a little too what I call fatey for me. A little too much about fate and a little too much about, Oogway is obviously very wise and he sees more of the picture than other characters. But this almost makes him too godlike rather than, because the Kung Fu Master is supposed to be above human but below God. And this leans a little too much God, in my opinion.
There was no way of him knowing that Po was going to do that and fall when he was pointing at Tigris. So I think what the movies are implying is that Oogway kind of realized his opportunity to, like, fix Kung Fu by having Po be the Dragon Warrior after it happened. So it was more a case of the universe putting things into place. So you can make it work.
You can make it work if the universe is, and you can do that in a lot of Chinese stories. Tian, the heavens, the universe is enacting on us, and Kung Fu masters are able to tap into that and understand it better than most people, but they can't necessarily control it. They have to kind of go with it. So that makes a little more sense for Oogway. But what I didn't like, though, is when Kai and Oogway are battling in the spirit realm, and he gets beaten pretty quickly, Oogway does, and then it almost feels like a footnote where it's like, yeah, but he actually lost because things have to march forward and cause plot. Okay, just get over it. And I was like, no, I mean, Oogway is amazing. It felt a little, I guess it's an idea of yielding. It's the concept of yielding in Kung Fu. You have neutral Jing, active Jing, right? Or passive Jing. So you're either defending or attacking, but you also can be neutral and not do anything. And I think he just kind of did that at some point.
Yeah, and like he knew that it was Po who had to defeat Kai.
Yeah.
So he just sort of like...
He knew it wasn't his place.
He did the same thing that he did in the first movie when he just decided to turn into a bunch of leaves.
Bye!
Because Po said so, Po said, well, Master Oogway can defeat Tai Lung. He did it before, and then actually he just turned into leaves. So he can't. They kind of gloss over his death in the first movie as well, just because they have to keep the plot going.
Gotta keep going.
Shifu just sort of says, well, he can't anymore, and everyone just goes like, and then it's never addressed again.
And then it's just there. Yeah.
They did bring him back for the third one.
I like Master Shifu because he does get frustrated, though. That's really nice to see his dynamic with not just when Oogway is alive, but after Oogway has passed. And Shifu's like, really, Oogway, Master? This is what you leave me with? I'm supposed to trust you until my dying day. How can I trust you when you put this panda in front of me and tell me to trade it?
Oogway is a very great... He's one of my favorite... that trope of the old wise master, Obi-Wan, Gandalf type character. And I really, really like Oogway. And I think what makes him stand out is just how funny he is. Because he has this
humor about him.
Some of the best lines when he says to Shifu that he had the vision of the Tai Lung returning and that they have to pick a dragon warrior. And Shifu says, but who could be worthy of gaining the secret to unlimited power? And Oogway says, I don't know.
Yeah. Oogway reminds me... Funny. I think Oogway is definitely based off of a lot of Taoist masters who retreat into the mountains. And there's like a lot of people like to talk about the Zhuangzi, which is a text by Master Zhuang, which is very like witty and kind of silly, but profound. And I feel like Oogway is definitely based on that kind of master.
He's a very like Master Yoda in a lot of ways, very similar to him. And,
yes.
It's just so nice how he kind of trains Shifu, because in everything, like Po has a great arc in the first movie, but Shifu has a great arc as well, where he goes from being very mean and degrading and easily frustrated to learning to see the truth of what Oogway said. They have that great conversation by the peach tree, where which is one of my favorite scenes, where Oogway is really stretching his philosophy at that point when they're talking about peaches and how some things you just cannot control. And then they have this. I think it's a really good example of illustrating those two different philosophies, because Shifu says well, I can control when the fruits fall and where I plant the tree. And then Uguay says, yeah, but no matter what you do, the tree will be a peach tree. And then Shifu says, but a peach cannot defeat Tai Lung. And Uguay says, maybe it can if you're willing to believe in it. And I'm like, can it though?
Can it though?
But I get where you're coming from, Uguay. I get what you're doing. And he did make his point. He did win in the end.
Yes, he did. He did. You know.
I'm not sure if you've seen this. There's a great post-credit scene in the first Kung Fu Panda movie, which is where Shifu and Po are sitting eating dumplings, and you can see a little.
So hungry.
You can see a little peach there where Uguay planted the seed. There's a little. What do we call that?
Sprout.
Yeah.
A sprout. Okay.
So
nice.
There's a new tree growing.
I like that.
Which is cute.
I like that a lot. I like that. It's very thematic. I also want to say, so in Kung Fu Panda 3, we have this idea of Shifu tells Po that she requires mastery of the self, and then in Kung Fu Panda 2, don't they talk about inner peace as the thing that he needs to achieve?
Yes.
Yes, inner peace, and then I translate that as balancing yin and yang. So like they've really not even that cleverly necessarily, like it's pretty much out there. They've really hidden these very profound Chinese philosophical ideas, and I guess I'm just blown away. And this whole stream, it's probably just like, okay, Amy, we get it, you're blown away. But I'm blown away with how they've done this.
It is very well done. Like the second movie gets way dark.
Yeah.
With the whole finding
panda genocide.
There's panda genocide, yeah, in a kids movie. I remember I watched it. The same friend that I went to see the first movie with, we went to see the second movie, and there were people crying we were sitting there like, oh my god, because for everything it is, the first movie is not really a tear. I mean, it does have tear up moments, but I tear up at everything. But like if you're a reasonably sentimental person, there are scenes in the first movie as well where that are quite sad, but it's nothing compared to the scene where in the second one where Po finds his inner peace by accepting that his parents, well, he thinks his parents died. It's really only his dad survived somehow.
Who knows?
Who knows? He got away.
Plots, cause theme. Yeah, he got away.
I mean, they never showed him die, so
yeah.
Yeah.
I also, if I could just like a couple of seconds, Yogi, and then we can go back to talking about whatever you want to talk about the movies. But there are a couple of scenes that stuck out to me as shout outs to Kung Fu movies in general. So I hope I'm coming through all right, because I just got a notification that my signal is not the best, but we're going to keep trucking along. The scene in Kung Fu Panda 2 where Po and the Furious Five are fighting and they just have a mission. It's kind of the beginning-ish of the movie. And there's this rabbit playing a stringed instrument. It's either a chin or a guzheng. I didn't get a good enough look. Of course, I care about these details. But he's playing the Chinese stringed instrument, and Po is like kind of tossing him back and forth, this little rabbit, so that he's like out of harm's way but still playing. That is such a classic trope. Not the passing around of the rabbit, but when a kung fu fighting where someone is playing a stringed instrument. We see that in Hero, which is something that I reviewed on John Webster Film. Everyone, please check out Cinematic Realms, aka John Webster Film, to talk about that. And
the passing of the rabbit does sound like
Kate
a Chinese
says I'm still
tradition.
coming through. I'm really gun shy about tech issues today, so good thing I'm coming through.
Ask me about it.
But so that idea of there's this kung fu being very integrated with these scholarly pursuits, and one of those pursuits is playing this it's considered a scholarly instrument, this type of sitting down stringed instrument. And so to have that going on, and then they kind of play on it a little bit with like where Po is like using his foot to catch the bunny. It's like, this is exactly what I think, this is why this is so popular in China and in America, is that it does play off of these elements, but it also is just really freaking fun and exciting. And also there are small things, just the tiny things, like how Shun, the peacock prince, has those long talon like metal attachments.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very much a callback to the last dynasty of China, where the empresses specifically would wear these long metal fingernails. It's a sign
also
of
very
royalty.
Accurate to biology, because peacocks do have those spores at their feet that they use to fight.
Exactly. So it's like it looks martial, and it is martial for him to have it, like, to fight and to be intimidating, but it's also a sign of royalty. And there are all these just little, very small details that you can still enjoy the movie without seeing. But me, as someone who studies China, I just fall all over myself watching these movies. I get so excited.
Yeah, it was a genius move to make the peacock be the royalty of the because it's not really a conventional choice for like an animal to be a villain. The first one, where Tai Lung was a snow leopard, made way more sense, because you don't really think peacock, you don't really think, ooh, terrifying. It's more like, when you think peacock, you think like the zoo. I don't know why, but every zoo has like those two peacocks that are just allowed to roam free. I'm not sure if you ever noticed that, but every zoo, they have peacocks just running around.
Out. Yeah,
and they make that awful noise. They have the worst bird call of all. Like, it's just.
I think that Tai Lung is the example, why they picked a snow leopard is the example of that brute force. And I think Shun and the peacock is that example of narcissistic rule where someone feels entitled to the throne. That's perfect for the peacock, especially the male peacock. They're always like, look at my colors, look at me, care about me. God damn, shut up, peacock. Yeah.
And
me and peacocks don't get along. They chase after me every time. Very aggressively when I see them.
And the thing with the peacock too is that, very unlike Tai Lung, is that the peacock's not that good at kung fu. There's like the one fight scene where he does pretty well, but his whole thing is that he invented something that's better than kung fu.
He needs a cannon for a reason.
Yes.
Because he can't kung fu.
But also to get back at the thing with, the other thing that I like about the movie is that they do pay attention not only to the the Chinese cultural elements, but also to the biology of the animal. So they have the peacock have those things at his feet that he used to fight. They have, what I really appreciate is that all of the female characters, that they don't give them boobs or like hips and stuff. They just look like Tigress, for example, just looks like a tiger, and all the female pandas just look like female pandas. They don't give them
that's very
exaggerated hips and breasts and stuff. So I really appreciate that. It's the movies in general are very inclusive, I think, just in terms of the staff and the voice cast. They have people like Jackie Chan or what's her name, Lucy Liu, I think.
Yeah.
So they have a lot of...
And Lucy Liu, too, her character, the snake, doesn't say much, but when she does, I'm like, oh my god, it's Lucy. Just get so excited.
The same for Jackie Chan. Like, the monkey does not say, doesn't have a lot of lines.
If you are a Jackie Chan fan and are interested, you can search Make a Man Out of You, Mandarin version, and that is Jackie Chan singing in Mulan, a man. I keep saying a man worth fighting for, which is hilarious. I'm combining a girl worth fighting for and Make a Man Out of You together to make a new song.
That's good. Yeah, but so there's the voice cast in general. Just to talk about another thing that's great is that there are they have Jackie Chan. Jean-Claude Van Damme plays Master Croc, and he does his signature Van Damme split.
Oh my god, yes!
Angelina Jolie plays Tigress.
Yes.
Jack Black's perfect as the Po the Panda.
I mean, you can't ask for
Dustin Hoffman, who plays Master Shifu, does. And I'm not sure if you noticed and appreciated this, but he does amazing kung fu noises.
He does.
When he attacks, when he into the second one comes in and he does like the noises he makes.
Yeah, whenever I hear the voice actors do the noise while they're fighting, there's definitely there are tears of like how much you feel like they're actually punching something, and Shifu's like up there. His voice like doesn't happen. It's just
he somehow managed to make it sound like, I don't know. I mean, it was good enough for me to notice it while I was watching it. It's like, wow, those are some really good huas. I couldn't do that.
Hua!
They sound like an old Chinese kung fu master.
Well, what did you think
and then of course,
about...
just goes some other actors. They also have obviously Gary Oldman plays the peacock.
Yes.
Then they have J.K. Simmons plays Kai in the third one. They have David Cross.
I just love when they're like, I am Kai. Who?
Yeah.
Because he's been gone so long.
Maker of Widows, Beast of Vengeance, and they're like, what?
Who? Kai?
It's great. It's I like that they make all of the villains. I think Kai is kind of in a lot of ways the weakest villain because he's kind of his backstory is the least interesting, and he's just kind of, I don't know.
His backstory is I'm mad at Oogway.
Yeah,
Shun
and the
is,
backstory is
I
like,
deserve
I
the
was
throne
friends
and
with
it's taken
Oogway, then I
from
wanted the
me.
cheap power for myself, and I was defeated, and now I'm back. It's very
Yeah.
not... Like, I like Tai Lung's backstory is great because it's just, oh, I know I take over the world. It's just him being very angry,
His
and
is,
he
I
wants the
want
Dragon's Scroll.
Shifu and Oogway to recognize me. That's
Yeah.
literally like senpai notice me is Tai Lung's
He's very
backstory.
relatable in a way that
Yeah.
Kai is just not, because it's just, well,
Absolutely.
you just wanted the cheap power for no reason. And then
Yeah.
Chen is not really relatable because
Yeah.
he's like monarchy and all that, but he's intimidating and he has that connection to the main character. So I think Kai is the weakest villain. But to go back to my point about inclusivity, so as you mentioned, you have the writing staff, you have the second and third movie were some of the first big budget CGI films that were directed by a woman. You have the inclusivity with the body types and all that stuff. And then there's also the third one, which has Poe having two dads, which is also just kind of cute.
I
know
was
it's
just
not.
about to
I know
ask
they're not.
you about
They're not
that.
gay, but it's still kind of cute.
He literally has a line where he's like, "Dads." So like, I'm counting it. It's queer enough. I'm putting on my queer studies hat, calling it queer.
Oh, and how could I forget? Bryan Cranston is also. He plays Poe's dad.
I was gonna
Perfect.
actually. This is a perfect segue, Yogi. I swear you're in my head because I was just about. I just flipped my page to Kung Fu Panda 3 and was gonna ask you how you thought about the themes of fatherhood in Kung Fu Panda 3 and this dynamic between, we will call Panda Dad and Goose Dad. So we have Lee and Ping, right? Panda Dad is Lee, and then Ping is Goose Daddy.
Yeah, yeah. Mr. Ping and what's Poe's dad's name again?
It's Lee Sean? Yes, Lee Sean. So his last name is
something
Lee,
like that,
first name is Sean.
Right.
Unless his
So,
whole name is Lee Sean. It could be either one.
Let's just say his name is Lee Shan.
He's Lee Sean. Yeah.
And well, the thing with fatherhood is they kind of started with that exploring that in the second movie when they were all about it doesn't matter that Poe's not technically Mr. Ping's son, because they show that great flashback about Mr. Ping finding him and that he raised him and that he always believed in him.
Where
It's so
he
cute.
comes out of the radish basket.
He's so adorable. They made him so adorable.
Oh, they made him so
Like,
cute.
And
Yeah.
then Mr. Ping is just such a lovely, lovely father. They kind of, you could argue that they play a little bit into that over-parenting Chinese Asian parent trope with him, but he's just so wholesome and cute. Like
Yeah.
in his obsession with his son, that it kind of doesn't matter. And
his
and then-
obsession, I think also what Ping also has going on, Goose Daddy, if you will, is he loves noodles and he's
He
worried
does love
about the future of the noodle shop. So a son is also about his legacy.
yeah, in the first movie, he has that whole thing about how he expects Poe to become the next noodle
Master.
shop maker, but then in
Yeah,
the end,
you had the
accepts that
noodle
his son
dream.
yeah, the noodle dream.
The noodle dream. So
I like
like
how
that's
there's
the
this-
thing is, I think the best part though, when you were talking about kind of over parenting, helicopter parenting, I love that he stashes away in Poe's backpack as Poe goes
Yeah.
off with Panda Daddy. I
Yeah.
just was like, thank you. You know what? Because he needs to, and he was like, I was worried you would be hungry. And I just am so touched by that. Goose
Yeah.
Dad like seriously cares about Poe, and of course he's going to be intimidated and feel like he's being replaced by Poe's biological father. And so I think, especially kids that are adopted, this is probably a really impactful movie for them.
Yeah, like the second movie is a really good message of it doesn't matter if you're adopted or not. You know, your parents are still your parents. And then the third one had this idea of, you know, Poe's obviously excited and having his real dad back in his life. There's that scene where Mr. Ping says, well, you're my son, right? And Poe doesn't give him an answer. So it's like, right? Are you not? But at the end of the movie is, of course, that he just realizes that he can have two dads.
Yes. And
And-
they can fight together in
Yeah.
this like
Double dad
almost
defense.
double dad defense. Yeah, it's like they were Power Rangers that like combined their powers.
Yeah,
That
they
is so
remade
great.
that Master Flying Rhino's armor from the beginning of the movie.
Yes.
And yeah, just like how I think it's cute how Poe and his dad are very similar. Like you can see that they are father and son because they have very similar personalities and stuff. But at the end, what still matters is the fact that Mr. Ping raised Poe, and that's
Yes.
just something that you cannot really replace. And so yeah, and I just think even though they're not gay in the movie, I mean, you can have them be gay in your head. There's nothing to say
Yes,
that
why
they're not.
not? That's
But
no one is being hurt by that.
even if that is so, still, if you watch that movie as a kid and you have two dads, or you know someone who has two dads, the concept will probably be less confusing. Because if someone says, actually, I have two dads, you think, oh, it's just like Po in Kung Fu Panda. And that's why it's important to have that kind of representation in films. A lot of people like to act like it doesn't matter. But, if you're a kid and you're kind of confused about it, or your friends make fun of you and you see it in a film, it just kind of normalizes it. For
hey,
people,
I just have a goose dad and a panda dad. Yeah, that's how you could look at it. And I want to also make it clear is it doesn't have to be sexual to be queer. So there is a show that I really like that's called Lianga Baba, Two Dads. And it's literally about these two guys that were with this woman at the same time. And she has a baby and dies. It's very dramatic. It's an Asian drama. And she leaves a note being like, I don't know which one of you is the dad. Just you should both take care of the baby. Completely platonic, but they're two dads raising a kid. It's still queer. They don't have to be in a romantic relationship. So if Po were to integrate both of his fathers into his life, that's still technically two dads. It's still queer, even though his dads don't have a relationship, because people are going to look at it as different and quote unquote queer, right? So that's also something I want to emphasize, is that we're not like forcing a queer reading into a kid's movie. No, this kid's movie has given us a queer reading that we can do. Very different. Trust me, I've tried to force some queer readings before that don't work, but this one clearly works.
Yeah, I mean, it's two dads. It's not heteronormative, as people like to say. So even if if they want to bang, it's fine. But
we're not against Goose Dad and and Panda Dad getting it on. Do. Don't worry.
Yeah, but yeah, I think it's one of the stronger. Definitely one of. I'm not. The third movie is kind of my least favorite out of the trilogy, but that aspect of it with the two dads, I think their scenes are some of the things that are really good and work really well in the movie. Especially the one where Mr. Ping and the Poe's dad have a talk, man to man, where Ping says a great line where he says that, where he says to Poe's dad, biological dad, Li Shen, that having him in Poe's life doesn't mean less for him, it means more for Po.
Exactly.
Which is a good realization.
Centering Po as the focus of parenting and taking it outside of the ego of Ping or of Li Shen. And that's what real parenting is, right? They both show that they're good fathers because they can do what's best for Po and look outside of their own egos. That's really important. Yeah. So I'm gonna throw some lightning round questions at you. Yogi, are you ready? You're like, I don't know. It's just about what you like about the movies. It's not like trivia about the movies. Which of the Furious Five is your favorite and why? And those in the chat, if you've seen the movie, tell us which is your favorite Furious Five member.
My favorite member of the Furious Five, I think probably Mantis. I just love that he's. I
love that little bug.
Tiny.
Yes.
And Seth Rogen does a great voice.
Yes.
Tigress is the coolest, and I should probably say Tigress, but I have a soft spot for Mantis because he doesn't have a lot of moments, but the moments that he does have are really good.
Like in the third one when he was like, "Oh no, I'm still green." Oh wait, that's my normal green.
Yeah. Or when in the first one when they're fighting Tai Lung on the bridge and they all go out and he's the only one who stays behind and holds the ropes. And he says, "Go help them." What was I thinking?
Yeah, he's like, little pictures.
And then in the second one, he has my favorite line, where he said, when they're defeated by Shen and they're all like locked up, he says, "I always thought one day I would meet a nice girl and we get married and she would eat my head." So sad.
And there's there are great scenes between Mantis and Crane too, because there's that one where Shifu's like, "Okay, Crane, go do this," and then Mantis is like, "Ha ha," and then he's like, "Okay, Mantis, you go with him." He's like, "Wait, is it because?" He's like, "Just go."
Yeah, you have kind of like this idea that they have their little like, they're all a team, of course, but like you can tell that Monkey and Vipress, they kind of are buddies because they're the ones who give Po acupuncture. Yes. Oh no, that's actually Vipress and Mantis.
Yes.
And then you have the Crane and Mantis, their friendship, they kind of develop that in the third movie when they're flying to that ship that's in the desert, which is just there's no reason, it's just a cool set piece when they get captured by Kai, and just their dialogue is really great. When I say, putting wings off in front of your attack doesn't make it special. And Crane says wings off disagreement.
Yes! I forgot about that. His wings of disagreement.
And that's made later when he's defeated, he has the wings of regret.
Oh, yes. Yes, the wings of regret. The wings of scene. That alone.
Actually, maybe I should have said Crane, because I still have, when Kung Fu Panda came out, in German McDonald's had Kung Fu Panda toys. And I got a Happy Meal and I got Crane. And I always liked Crane because I liked birds, and I liked him because they didn't give him hands; they just gave him wings.
Yeah,
and he was very. Maybe I should have said Crane. Well, I mean, it's either Mantis or Crane.
Mantis or Crane. Okay, yeah. My favorite. This will come surprise to no one who knows how obsessed I am with monkey imagery. Is Monkey? Yes, it is Monkey. It is indeed Monkey. Monkey is my favorite. There's I just love the character, and I also love the symbolism that comes with it. And he's not actually the stereotypical jokester necessarily that we see in mythology, and I also appreciated that. And I think that's Jackie Chan is the one who voices Monkey, correct?
Yes,
Yogi?
He has some good lines.
He has some great lines.
Funny.
But I have to say that, like we were talking about earlier, the dynamic between Crane and Mantis is probably the best kind of Furious 5 relationship. But I would say, Monkey is definitely my favorite. And if I had to pick a second one, actually, it would probably be Viperous. I love that little snake.
She's very cool.
She's really cool.
That she doesn't have teeth?
Oh, I've never thought about that.
When she smiles, she never has teeth.
Oh.
I think there's something in her. There's like a Christmas special that I've seen many, many years ago when I was a kid, where like her backstory is that she either didn't have them or lost them, and so she's not poisonous.
So she doesn't have the fangs.
She still fights.
Huh.
So she actually doesn't use her poison to fight.
But she can constrict and kick
She can,
butt.
yeah. I mean, she's a viper. I think a viper. Do they constrict their victims or do they poison them?
They're usually poison, but if they don't have that, then she could wrap around people. Yeah. But they're usually a poisonous snake, I think, rather than a constrictor. But that's really interesting. So that's the Furious 5. All right. So next question. All right, Yogi, what is your favorite scene from each of the movies?
That's difficult. I think my favorite scene from the first movie is Shifu and Oogway talking about the peach tree.
Yeah.
And then Oogway dying, but a close second is the bridge fight, because that's just amazing.
Yeah, that is a great.
The Furious 5 versus Tai Lung on the bridge is so well. Like, this is a whole other thing that we don't have to go into detail right now, but the choreography is so amazing in these movies, and all the fights are so great. And you mentioned earlier that there's lots of references to other kung fu movies, and I think my favorite fight in the movies is when Po fights Master Shifu and they have their chopstick fight over the dumplings. That's another reference to a kung fu movie that I actually haven't seen. I'm not a huge kung fu movie fan.
Well,
I just love Kung Fu Panda.
It's the classic, you want this, come and take it trope, where the master keeps whatever it is away from the student. That's classic kung fu movie.
That whole training montage might be another one of my favorite scenes. The music, another thing that we haven't talked about yet, Hans Zimmer's score.
Yes, the score. The score.
One of his best. I think it might be my favorite
amazing.
Hans Zimmer score. It's so good. There's the track.
Really
Everyone,
good.
If you've seen the movie or not, look up the track. The Pool of Sacred Tears is one of my favorite Hans Zimmer compositions ever. It's so good, and that training montage is so well done.
The way that they balance using Western and Eastern instrumentals is also very respectable, because a lot of times they overdo it, where it's like, if I hear another Chinese flute, I'm gonna punch someone in the face.
Like that string.
You know?
It's a good mix.
It's a great mix of the traditional instrument.
And it's a very. I like Hans Zimmer, but sometimes his scores can feel a little. You can tell that he wings it sometimes. Because I'll be watching like Gladiator, and it's like that's just straight up Pirates of the Caribbean music with like 2 notes removed. He has a lot of that dun 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 dun, dun that he like uses over and over again.
He definitely has a shtick that he can stick
Kung Fu
to.
Panda is very original, because I think it's the introduction of those Eastern instruments that makes it just stand out from his. Obviously, he's a great composer, but sometimes it's like. But that one's really good.
Yeah.
So,
And this is something that I talk about in my own, and I guess another plug in my Chinese hip hop blog that I'm going to go back to writing on after a year of absence, is that blend of the Eastern and the Western sometimes is just not achieved in certain songs. And I think that Kung Fu Panda overall, the score does. All right. Kung Fu Panda 2, favorite scene, Yogi.
Kung Fu Panda 2 favorite scene, probably the... This is tough because there's a lot of good... They're very good movies. I think my favorite scene in the second movie is the 2D flashback about how his mom died. That's intercut with him doing the inner peace thing.
Okay, I like that. You're right. That is one of the best cuts too, because you have the dewdrop that he has to like go all throughout his body so that he can place it on the leaf, right? I also, and the flashback is really interesting. Also, what did you think about this integration of this like cartoony looking sunspot, and then it's the spots on the peacock's feathers? I thought that was a really interesting representation of how Poe was remembering something.
Oh yeah.
Until he sees it, he doesn't put it together.
The picture. Also, there's a great detail because if you notice in that 2D flashback scene, the trees actually have that symbol on them. It reminded me of one of my favorite TV shows, Gravity Falls, which has, not sure if anyone's seen it, but it has a villain called Bill Cipher, and he has one eye. And sometimes they have flashback scenes where all the trees, like the bark, kind of has that.
Like a little nook.
Where it looks like it has that eye on it. And some trees do look like that. And they do that. They do that in Kung Fu Panda 2 as well, which is a really great just thing. And I love that design. And I also love the they have a lot of that yin and yang thing. And another one of the movies, they're so good at doing montages. First one has that training montage. The second one has the traveling montage.
When they're traveling and when Shun is
there's
readying
the 2D
everything
of like red and yellow, and then it turns into the yin and yang, and then it turns into his pupil, and it zooms out, and you have that amazing, so well done.
I actually, as much as I love the first, I actually find myself thinking more about the second, personally.
It's more impressive in terms of the animation, definitely.
Absolutely.
I think the villain is I think the villain is better. Shen is my favorite villain, and a good villain doth make a good movie. I think with me, a lot of people say that the second one is better than the first one. It's often cited as one of those rare instances where the sequel is better than the original. I never was quite willing to go that far just because I think the first one is so perfect. I couldn't really tell you what I would criticize about the second one. There's just some scenes that I feel kind of drag a little bit, like when they're in the prison trying to talk to the ox and the crocodile. I never really got the point why they're in the movie. So there's a couple of things that feel a little bit more like padding and like, hey, we need to sell toys.
Yeah.
Make a Jean-Claude Van Damme crocodile kung fu master. And the first one doesn't have that. The first one just feels, every scene feels so necessary.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my favorite scene from the second one is the flashback with the inner piece. Close second would probably be the montage and when he redirects the cannonballs at the end.
Yes. No, that's so cool. Yeah. And I like when I first saw this is what I like about that, Yoki, is that when I first saw the dewdrop thing, I was like, this is going to be thematically important, isn't it? And then later he's like stopping cannonballs. I'm like, this is going to be thematically important, isn't it? Like I got completely excited, which I was before. I was like, okay, we'll see what you do with this. Actually, I'm glad you mentioned the prison, Yogi, because I got comments from like 3 separate people for when I had you on my discussion about the Air Nation. If you're an Avatar: Last Airbender fan, please check that out. I had Yogi on with a couple of other people who talked about the Air Nation. And you said one thing that literally 3 people have DM'd me or commented saying they thought was hilarious, which is we were talking about in Korra whenever Zahir and all these people were locked up, and you're like, and they got these like Kung Fu Panda style prisons.
Yeah, they're all in Kung Fu Panda prisons.
Everyone loved the crap out of that, and that's my favorite part of that episode.
Yeah, I also called Ozai Fire Hitler, which also a lot of people said
yes, also great. He is Fire Hitler.
But Hitler was never as ripped as Ozai.
No, man, Ozai lifts. Man.
I don't know. I want to know his diet, but
he's doing bench presses on bench presses, you know. Anyway,
I mean, yeah. But I mean, it is true. I think Kung Fu Panda actually did kind of contribute to the popularization of elaborate prisons, The second one is really boring. Like the Gongman City prison, it's just kind of a prison. But the first one, it's called Shawgong Prison, I think it's called. And
and where it's like a little feather, and then he's like, it's like very complicated.
Do you know? Does that mean anything?
What was it again?
Or Shawgong? It's called something like that. The Shawgong Prison.
I would probably have to see the characters.
Yeah, I'm probably pronouncing it because they do pronounce it wrong in the movie as well.
Yeah.
Like, we should say they say it's Lord Shen, and they call Poe's dad Li Shen.
Is it SHAO or SHOU?
I think it's SHOR. Let me look it up.
Yeah. You do some live research live look up while I talk, and to take up time. But I really like.
It's spelled CHORHGOM. So it's Chogom Prison.
HGOM. That, to me, sounds like it's playing off of the prison in the Gobi Desert that was there during Imperial times.
Canonically, I looked this up on the wiki. The prison is actually located in the mountains of Mongolia.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, the Gobi Desert, the steppe regions of Mongolia, there have been prisons there. That are famous for being so remote that even if you escape, you will die of thirst and hunger escaping. So that's fun. So yay, kids' movies. So Kung Fu Panda 3, favorite scene, Yogi? Hit me with it. That's where we've got the big bad is Kai stealing the chi for those listeners.
Third one's, I mean, it is my least favorite one, partly because it doesn't have that one scene where I'm like, ugh, you know?
Yeah.
I think probably either Mr. Ping and Li Shen talking about Poe and what it means to co-parent, and or the opening with Master Shifu in the spirit world is great. The fight between Kai and Oogway. I love Kai's theme. He has a great. I always felt, I mean, it's a good theme, but I always felt it would have suited Shen better because it sounds very industrial. You know what I mean? Kai's theme is that den, 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 and it has that like 20s. It sounds a lot like the music they use in The Legend of Korra for like when they have
very
industrial
steampunk
things.
Yeah,
it's very steamy. I always associate that kind of music with like steam engines.
Yeah, that's
so I always
my
felt
main
that it would have been a
notes
better theme for Shen.
Yeah, that's
Shen
my main notes for the second one is more steampunk. You teased me with it, and then you kind of just don't edge me. You got to finish me off. You know what I'm saying?
I was so 100% certain that they were going to have airships in the second one instead of regular ships, because it just seems like such a steampunk staple to have ships that fly through the sky, but they didn't. They just had regular ships.
Yeah. I think that they really should have steampunked the second one more if that's what they were going for.
And the theme for Kai would have been great for Shen because it has that steam engine. I'm not sure. It's impossible to describe. You have to look up Hans Zimmer Kai theme, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I always associate that sound with the 1920s, like Titanic level. Well, not 1920s, but that kind of steampunk thing. So yeah, the opening's very good.
I actually would have preferred if Kai was in Kung Fu Panda 2 and Shun was in Kung Fu Panda 3, or if in Kung Fu Panda 3 with Kai they had more steampunk, because it looks like they're attempting this idea of the world is changing, right? It's getting more. There's change. Yeah. Anyway, I feel it. Anyway, never mind. So if they're going to go with that theme, they either need to have it as the third movie or the second. If they're going to do it in the second, then the third still have hints of that. And instead we get spirit world stuff, which maybe would have been better in the second one. And then this kind of steampunky possible death of Kung Fu, I think would have been more dramatic.
Yeah, you're right. Movie. Yeah. But then they couldn't have had that because it fits very neatly with his progression from amateur fanboy to Kung Fu master. You do kind of need to have the spiritual thing be the last thing he learns, and you can't make Shen work with that so well. So, though I guess technically Poe could have skadooshed Shen into the spirit world as well. They kind of bring that up in the third one. I was kind of surprised by that when they're like, well, I'll just use the Wuxi finger hold.
Yes.
It's my best move. And I was like, why didn't you just skadoosh Shen into the spirit world in the second one? Wouldn't that... Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's because he doesn't have fingers. He has feathers. Maybe it doesn't work on peacocks.
It only works if you have finger.
I do like that they actually explained what happens to, because in the first one it's just he just does the whooshy finger hold, and it's just poof, and he's gone.
Yeah.
So it's like.
I thought he was like literally like
disintegrated
into oblivion.
When I was a kid, I thought they weren't gonna like. So when in the very beginning, Shifu kind of teases or bullies, I should say, Po, he grabs his finger and he says, and then Po's like, "Oh no, don't do that." And Shifu's like, "Oh, you know this hold. You know what's the most difficult thing about it? It's cleaning up afterwards." So I thought, as a kid, I thought it like makes you poop your pants or something.
Oh no! So innocent. Haha, you pooped your pants.
Yeah, the whooshy finger hold.
Finger of humiliation.
That actually sounds realistic. Like I know that there is some, I think it's jujitsu or something, where you actually can press certain nerves on the body, and you can make people like lose their leg power or something. So maybe there's a thing you could do that. I remember there was a guy who came to my.
This idea of pressure points is this idea of that your whole body is connected. And so if so some people do acupuncture get it for many reasons, but some people do get it for regularity. So
yeah, I mean,
it can happen.
Regular Western, like medical science, they do say it doesn't do anything to poke your body full of like little tiny needles, but you shouldn't disregard the aspect of people who think it helps. It can actually help.
Also, acupuncture, what we think of as the needles, is one type of acupuncture. It's a very large term. There's also something called moxibustion, which is where you have like a hot stone and you put mugwort on the, let's say we're doing this pressure point, and then you burn, and then it burns in, but it's not, the hot stone is not touching your skin, the mugwort is. So it's heating up the mugwort. So you're not burned, but you are warmed. And that actually has helped with my headaches. Like I am here to, I mean, it's not just because I'm interested in East Asia. Like I have friends who have acupuncture licenses who have done things that are not needles on me that have worked. So I can't speak for the needle acupuncture, but certainly Eastern medicine. I mean, they would have stopped doing it a long time ago if it didn't do anything. We act like, oh, those Chinese, they just won't give up their old ways. Well, they would give it up if it didn't do anything. It's not just about tradition. Although I will say cupping, I don't get what that does. I have been cupped before.
Yeah, that's just to me. It's almost like my stance in that thing is like I'm always skeptical towards things that people call alternative medicine, because I'm like, well, if it was proven that it worked, wouldn't it just be medicine? Like why would you need to call it something else? Just if it works, just call it medicine, and if it doesn't, don't do it. I mean, if it doesn't do any harm, again, there's the placebo
and even then, like the
thing.
idea of Eastern medicine too. The only thing that helped my stomach when I was in China was these like stomach pills from this Chinese medicine company that you can't find in the West. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's cocaine. If so, thank you.
Maybe just because it's illegal.
But it's something. I don't know what it did, but it made my time. I didn't discover it until I was actually only had a couple of weeks left on my study abroad program, which is not great. But now when I go back, I will immediately buy those pills.
That's a good thing, yeah.
My Mandarin was such at the time that I literally just went in and was like, "Hi, I have diarrhea" in Mandarin, and that was like the extent of how I could get. And they're like, "Here you go," and that was the extent of my pharmacy experience.
What does "Hi, I have diarrhea" mean in Chinese?
你好，我拉肚子了. Hi. It's literally my stomach is being pulled. I apologize, dear listeners, but this is a Mandarin lesson that is very important. Pulling of the stomach is the term for diarrhea.
Pulling of the stomach.
It's pulling. You're like, it's pulling out of your body. Like you pull something with your hand. Yeah. Anyway, not pull like something pulls together, but pull as in you like pull open a door. Anyway, moving on from our diarrhea Mandarin lessons. So I love that you thought the whooshy finger hold might make someone shit their pants, though. That's probably the best thing I've heard all day. And I'm never going to see the whooshy finger hold the same again. I also, the aesthetics-wise, I liked the little jade versions of the chi that Kai had. Like the visuals. Even if I'm meh on the like character development and some of the writing, the visuals, I think, are pretty top-notch.
And the voice acting is also very good.
Sorry, Micah. Micah's eating. While I'm talking about diarrhea. Okay.
Actually, if you look closely, you can see that one of the tiny little jade stones that Kai has is actually Tai Lung. So he did get his chi in the spirit world as well. Yeah.
I did not see that. This is why I'm having you on, because you've seen these movies more than I have.
I have. The third one is the one I've seen the least, but I have seen it at least twice.
What did you think about the third? Though had one thing that I think makes it. For me, I put it up as a good movie, which is May May and her ribbon dancing. Oh my god! And how they changed that into nunchuck fighting.
Yeah, and she's voiced by Rebel Wilson, who can do nunchucks in real life.
Oh my god!
And I love that they didn't have her
and
Poe like be a thing. Like they introduced her as like a possible love interest, but they didn't go there. They're above it. They never gave Poe a love interest in any of the 3 movies.
I appreciate that. Like this,
because he has to end up with Tigress, right? Right? Are you on board with that? Are you on board with the Tigress Poe ship?
I don't ship any 3D animated animals myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not normally even a shipper. It's very few times that I am like, I will die on this hill about a ship.
When I was a kid. I was really
Crane and Mantis. I want them to live in queer harmony.
That's true. And
they seem like they've got some real sexual tension going on.
That's true. Like when I was a kid, I was really into shipping. Like when I saw people on like I was always, I didn't admit this to myself at the time, but I was really into, when I was watching Phineas and Ferb, which was my favorite TV show when I was a kid, still is one of my favorite TV shows. Whenever they had episodes with Candace and Jeremy, I was always really excited because I always liked having relationships. Or when I watched Kim Possible, when Kim Possible and Ron
did you want to get with Ron?
What?
Did you want her to get with Ron?
Yes, like when I watched Kim Possible
with the naked mole rat. Me too.
When they got together in like one of the later seasons, I was so giddy and excited about it.
Me too. I was so excited.
I was shipping cartoon characters when I was a kid.
I shipped them too. I was definitely more of a shipper when I was younger, but now I really could not care less. Like when I first watched Avatar: Last Airbender, I was like, Zuko and Katara need to get together, and now I'm like, I really don't care.
I'm just like, call me a cynic or call me whatever. I'm just not big into romance in general. It's not an aspect of movies or TV shows that I'm very interested in. I think because it doesn't play a huge role in my own life. I know that sounds kind of sad, but it's just like I don't care I don't care about stories that are romance centric. I don't know why. I mean, actually, I do like Call Me by Your Name, which is like the whole point of the movie is. Maybe it's just straight people romance that I don't care about.
I mean, it's so boring and normal.
Like, I mean, one of my favorite movies of all time is Titanic, but I would be lying if I said that the part of the movie, like, I am more sad about that one shot about the 2 old people in bed than I am about anything that happens to Kate Winslet. But it's not that I'm not sitting there like, I don't like hate it. It's just not the thing that draws me in. When I watch Titanic, I watch it because I love the ship. That's the ship that I care about.
Oh, that's the ship that you care. It's the Titanic
that's the ship.
All right, that's the ship.
Yeah. And I love Titanic. I know John Webster's down there in the comments seething. I love it, and it's a great movie.
It's a great movie.
It's good. It's slightly overlit, but it's a good movie.
But I will defend it until the death. So let's go back to Kung Fu Panda movie before I beat up Yogi for his Titanic takes.
Yeah, before. I love it. It's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Okay, so we've talked about who we like better. We both like Shun better as the villain. Yes. And we both talked about our favorite Furious 5. So what do you think about kind of Poe? I mean, he's our main character. So what do you think kind of has drawn particularly a younger audience to, first of all, it's Jack Black. I mean, come on. But second of all, how have they kind of manufactured Poe to be this kind of hero that seems relatable in a lot of ways?
Yeah. I mean, before I get into that, I should say that we praised J.K. Simmons and Gary Oldman for their voice performances, so we should also mention Ian McShane, who voices Tai Lung, who does a great job. Ian McShane, to the people of your audience, he was Septon Meribald in Game of Thrones.
Oh, okay.
And he was also Blackbeard in that Pirates of the Caribbean movie that doesn't exist.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a very high-budget fan film called On Strange Tides. But yeah, I mean, Poe, I think what makes Poe so relatable is because he's just a very unconventional hero, especially in the first movie, because he wasn't prophesized to defeat Tai Lung. He's a fanboy, which is very relatable.
Very relatable. When I saw
he's just,
I mean, it's like, oh my god, it's the so and so who fought blah blah in the Valley of Shame, and I'm just like, dude, every dork, every geek can relate to that of being like, if you ever were in the element of the, when he meets the Furious Five, it's exactly how I would be if I were fangirling.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the most popular GIFs that came out of Kung Fu Panda is him reacting to the one of the armor pieces, where he's just like, I use that GIF a lot. It's a good reaction GIF.
Yeah. And I like how that ties into, I think it's the third, where him and his biological father try on all of the relics in the hero in the Hall of Heroes.
I think it's just good because he's such a likable character, because he's excitable and he's motivated, and he doesn't give up, but he's not he's funny, but he's not like mean. Like, he doesn't make fun of others. He's just very excited and lovable, and he's very positive, and he's it's just a great, watching it as a kid. It's like, he's overweight, and he's very bad at kung fu, and he's not the smartest person in the world. So he's a very, very average person to just happens to be thrust into this thing. Oh, by the way, you have to defeat this crazy, murderous, Kung Fu master.
Yeah, you have to do that. And then second movie, you have to save all of Kung Fu from modern warfare. And then the third one, you have to defeat an immortal being. I mean, a being that's already died.
And it's just one of my favorite moments in the first movie is after Shifu tries to get Po to quit, and they go into his room in the morning, and he's gone, and they're like, well, he quit. Yeah. And then they actually find out that he got up earlier than them and started training, trying to do the perfect split.
Yeah.
And so it's just, he doesn't give up, but he's still, even as he gets better, he doesn't get more confident, as in he doesn't become a jerk or anything.
Yeah.
He just becomes more confident, and he's still a goofy. Even in the third movie, where he's supposed to be the ultimate kung fu master, he still gets his ass kicked by Tigress. So it's not and he's still a fanboy as well. But when he sees the Master Croc and Ox or whatever they're called, he still freaks out. And,
I like that because he's still more he's still down to earth, even when he's literally all of China is kind of
very humble.
Him.
He's a very good kung fu person.
Yeah, kung fu person. He's a very
person.
good
That's what the movie would have been called if it was live action. Kung fu person. That's kind of what it's called if you think about it, because
it's Panda, but with person.
Panda that does kung fu,
But I do like that he is a fanboy and he is silly, but he's serious when it counts. When he's when the shit's going down.
He can get serious about stuff, and that's also good. When though they always undercut it, even his most serious moments are undercut with humor. Like when he comes back to defeat Shen, and he gives his cliche hero speech, and then it cuts to him far away, and you can't even understand what he's saying. He says,
Aaron says it would be much less cute Kung Fu Man if we didn't.
Kung Fu Man,
much less cute, because if we didn't do Kung Fu Panda. So okay, well, I'm trying to keep this under 2 hours. So what do you want to talk about, Yogi, that we have not talked about?
So those were your questions?
Yes, those are my quote-unquote lightning round questions.
Very good questions. Let me check my notes.
Literally came up with them on the fly, because like I said, woke up with 15 minutes before the stream started.
I mean, that's very good. I had all day to prepare, and my notes say...
I have my notes from watching the movies, and I kept looking at notes while you were talking, being like, gotta do something, Amy, do the thing.
Well,
I mean, we have 3 movies to talk about, which is great, so... Yes.
So I wanted to talk about the voice acting, which we did, which is great. The animation, we also talked about that. It's very good. The action and choreography, maybe as someone who probably has seen more kung fu movies than me, how did you feel about the kung fu in the movie? Was it good kung fu?
So the second one in particular, that opening scene where they kind of have this mission to go on, and it's kind of like that they in this Kung Fu Panda 3. Sorry, let me be clear. When they're fighting these little Jade Warrior Chi things that have been unleashed on them by Kai, the way that the camera kind of pans where you see the Furious Five and Poe all fighting different, and it doesn't just focus on one and then cut to another, but kind of more pans over the battlefield. I really appreciated that as it's a very common technique in kung fu movies, where you do have multiple battles going on, and you get this kind of meta view of it, and before you get the individual shots. And I really appreciated that, because there is this kind of idea, especially in Kung Fu, that you must not just be aware of yourself and your opponent, but the whole battlefield and your comrades, right?
Yeah.
How they're doing. And so this kind of like 360 awareness that a Kung Fu master has to have, I think the camera action, if you will, I know it's animated, but the metaphorical camera action that's going on there is very much a throwback. And of course, I mentioned the also in Kung Fu Panda 3 with the fighting where the rabbit is playing the instrument. That actually
I like those when they introduce stuff like
pardon me, in Kung Fu Panda 2, that part. That and the way that they pan on that scene too. That's very, very much going in with that. And the classic "You're not worthy, you better be gone" when we wake up. Oh my God, that is so like, that is very Karate Kid. You know what I'm saying? That's very kind of like, you, in order to learn from the master, you must first be a worthy student. These kinds of tropes.
The thing they do really well that they also did in Karate Kid is that way of unconventional teaching, when Shifu figures out that the way to get through to Po is with food, and then they have the the training montage where he uses balls of soup and dumplings and stuff. It's like when in Karate Kid he taught him how to, like, he had him wash his car and like paint his fence and stuff. So they do that. I always like when they introduce these little gimmicks into a fight, like the chopstick fight and the bunny. But then, do you have maybe it's time for me to ask some questions. What's your favorite fight scene? Because there are a lot of great. It's called Kung Fu Panda, so you kind of the fights.
A lot of fight scenes
are so good. Do you have a favorite? I think so
that,
good.
Was there not a scene where they were trying to keep the dragon skull from Tai Lung, and they were passing it back and forth?
When Po and Tai Lung were fighting over the dragon scroll in the first movie.
Yes, I think that focus on, and especially that long and skinny object, and like kind of grab your hands and try and get it and back and forth. I like that scene because it does have that obsession with the object that Tai Lung has with the dragon scroll and being the dragon warrior, and hilarious because we as the audience
know it's empty. Yeah.
Know that it's one of those like kindergarten believe in yourself things.
And it's the fight scene that brings back all the training. So it brings back the chopstick thing when he when the scroll is under one of the woks and he mixes them and he does the thing where it just mirrors a lot of the fight he has with Shifu, where Shifu tries to jump and he grabs him and pulls him down. He does the same thing to Tai Lung, and then there's the bit in the beginning when Po shows up in another great moment of like subverting classic heroic scenes when Tai Lung has this very dramatic scene. He always like chokes Shifu to death, and then Po shows up and he's totally out of breath, and he's like, and then Tai Lung says, "What are you gonna do, big guy? Sit on me?" And then later, when they fall down the stairs, Po just keeps landing on him. It's just great.
Yeah, I think how the earlier training always integrates with the later scenes. Like if we could skip ahead to in Kung Fu Panda 2, but the cannons, how that goes back with the do. But I love that scene where they've been blasted into the water, right?
Yeah.
And Po looks around and the Furious Five and Shifu are down, and you're like, it's over. Throw in the towel. Kung Fu's dead. Long live the cannons. But
movie's over.
Yeah, movie's over. But then the way that he gets up on that little kind of plot of, land and then is redirecting. Yeah. It's just that scene too, and how it ties in with this idea of inner peace and of kind of redirecting this inner, and that goes with the neutral, right? It's not passive and it's not active. It's neutral. You're taking the energy that's given to you and kind of redirecting it.
Yeah, because he's not killing anyone.
And I just love Shifu's face too when that happens. He's like, "What the?"
I love how Shifu
was not prepared.
I love how Shifu they have a great arc from like even in the first one when when Po comes back and Shifu's lying there, and Po is like, "Don't die, don't die," and he's like, "I'm not dying, you idiot." Dragon warrior. And then in the third one, Po's like, "Oh yeah, I met Master Oogway in the spirit world, and he taught me chi." And then Mr. Shifu's like, "Oh, of course he did. Can you teach me?"
Yeah.
And it's so cute.
Yeah. I love it.
It's just a nice, the student has become the master thing. But yeah, actually, my favorite fight, I think, in all of the movies is Tai Lang versus Shifu. Because it has the greatest emotional.
Oh my god. Yeah, where
like
Tai Lang is
bit
saying,
when they crash,
I was never good enough for you.
Yeah, when he yells at him and you have the Hans Zimmer choir in the background. Mwah. But yeah, I think my favorite bit of that fight is when they zigzag from pillar to pillar and the camera like follows them, and then they jump through they burst through the roof and they're in the air and they fight in the air, and you have the amazing music. That's just such a kung fu movie thing to do, and it's so amazing. And then it's just great.
I love that they did this with animals too. You know? Yeah. I really appreciate really that.
Anthropomorphic animals are a really great way of like highlighting certain characteristics of the characters. Po is a panda. He's peaceful. He's fat. He's not,
slow.
He's slow in more ways than one. And then Tigress, ferocious, and Viper and Monkey is kind of a goofball, and Mantis is, I don't know. I don't know what they associate with praying mantises. He eats people's head. No, he gets his head eaten because he's the male.
He gets his head eaten only by his lady friend, though.
Yeah, but they all have a thing. And then Crane, Crane always says "caca" when he does an attack, which is hilarious.
The best part about Crane, though, hands down, is what we were talking about earlier with Wings of X.
Wings of X.
Wings of.
I think in the second one he actually uses it
justice.
Unironically. He says "Wings of Justice."
Yes.
And it's a great callback because earlier in the movie he says, "I don't say caca," and then at the end when he says "Wings of Justice," caca.
Yes.
It's just really good. Yeah, I like how they play with all those tropes of heroes, because the Furious Five are kind of like celebrities and like comic book heroes, only they actually exist and they do all this amazing stuff. It's really, really cool.
I also love especially with the third, where we get this collection of the Kung Fu masters, and there's this idea that, that each Kung Fu master is kind of immortal in their legend, right? Because even though they were dead and sent to the spirit realm, we have Po, and there was Croc and Ox that were locked up and had lost hope. And so there is this kind of revitalization of Kung Fu masters that the Dragon Warrior brings. Yeah. That's once again, very Kung Fu movie tropey, for sure. This idea that Kung Fu is dying and it needs someone to save it. Kind of like magic is going away and we need someone to bring it back that's a lot of fantasy tropes.
Yeah, it's just, I think, going over my notes, I think the only thing that we haven't, we talked about all sorts of different reasons why these movies are so great. Voice acting, animation, choreography, music, screenwriting, but there's just one thing, it's just they're really funny as well. Like, the humor is very, very good.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the first one is probably the funniest one. It just has so many, and a good variety of gags as well. They have a lot of good slapstick, good cutaways. When Master Shifu says, it's not your destiny to defeat him, it's his. And then he's not there, and it cuts to him shouting, running away. It's just like good moments like that I really, really like.
It is funny. I also
anything that Oogway says is absolute gold. In the third one, when he's sitting there in a peace, itchy nose. When he has the when he has
it made me want to itch my nose too, just thinking about it. I hope that these movies also inspire people to be more interested in Kung Fu movies, as well, because I think Po represents what the audience, what kids watching could be, which is this like Kung Fu fan person. And I really appreciate that, because that is something that it teaches you to like what you like and not be ashamed of geeking out about what you like.
It's a great message. It's got lots of great messages. It doesn't matter like how you grew up isn't matter. It's who you are that defines you. Batman stole that from Kung Fu Panda. Batman came out after Kung Fu Panda.
Yeah.
It's what I do that defies me. Whatever the fuck he says in his stupid. I hate Christian Bale's Batman voice. I hate it so much.
I believe Aaron in the chat will agree with you. We've
Where is
talked
the
about
trigger?
that.
Where is it? It sounds so stupid.
I have
Anyways,
to mute. I'm laughing too hard.
yeah, it's so they stole that from that. Then they have there's no special ingredient, which is the best message. It's not super original, but it's a really nice way of the way they handled it with the scroll being blank.
Especially because the scroll is up in this dragon's mouth.
Yeah.
And it's so
And if you think about
unattainable
it,
and
because
magical.
Oogway, it said that Oogway invented Kung Fu, so he wrote that scroll, right? So he knows it's blank, right? So when Shifu says, "Who could be trusted with the secret to limitless power?" and he kind of says, "I don't know," and he has that smile, like you know that he knows that there's nothing in there.
Yes.
So in a way, it's kind of, it reminds me of what Yoda says in The Last Jedi, where he says there is nothing in there that the girl Rey doesn't already have.
Yeah.
Even though now that I think about it, I think at the end of the movie they reveal that she actually took the books.
Yeah,
So
it's a
maybe
little bit
Yoda
back
was
against
just
that.
maybe Yoda was just kind of being cheeky because he knew that she had the books. So it's literally true, but I don't
think
know.
that the way that I see it is that there's this idea that the work that you put into being worthy of being the Dragon Warrior before you get the scroll was the point. So you
Yes.
wanting to be the Dragon Warrior, wanting to save China, wanting to carry on a Kung Fu legacy, that makes you the Dragon Warrior, not the
Yes,
scroll.
there's nothing from outside that can make you better. It's just which is kind of
Yeah.
what they talk about in the third movie when it says, "I'm not trying to turn you into me. I'm trying to turn you into you."
Yes,
And that's the
exactly.
thing. So yeah, just a great message. I kind of forgot what I was talking about. I also started a flame war in the chat about
Because
Christopher
of the
Nolan's Batman movies.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
what
I
happened.
have. This has nothing to do with Kung Fu Pandas. I have opinions about Christopher Nolan movies in general, and I have opinions about the Batman trilogy. Oh boy, some people would not like them. I do not. The second one's fine. I like The Dark Knight. I don't like it as much as everyone else, but it's fine. But I don't like Christopher Nolan movies. I'm sorry. I think
Dear
they're needlessly
listeners, please
complicated.
remember that you're subscribed to my channel
Yes.
right now and not
Don't
Yogi's.
let my
Do not
wrong
unsub for
opinions
me.
turn you off from Amy's channel. I'm just, all of Christopher Nolan's movies star white guys in suits and they're needlessly complicated.
Because I'm not really a Batman fan either, so you can unsub, I guess, from me for not being a Batman fan. I don't care enough to care about this part of the conversation. I'm sorry.
You're never
to
going to
say.
make content about
Christian
Bale's stupid Batman voice.
I mean, if I talk about DC, it's going to be about the Justice League or someone that's not Batman. So.
I like Ben Affleck's Batman
Affleck's
voice
Batman.
because he uses a digital voice distortion
which
rather
makes
than
sense.
just talking like this.
Oh no!
And
All right, we
moving
have to
his
get off this
lips.
subject. You're gonna
We
get
do,
canceled.
we do,
We're gonna get double
we do.
canceled.
Right.
Okay.
Right, we do.
All right. So, are there any? I don't know if there are any characters that we haven't talked about, but are there any that we haven't talked about or that you want to touch on again?
Let me think about it. We talked about Furious 5, Oogway, Shifu.
Oh, I was gonna say one more thing.
Oh.
The little things they do with names, I love. Like I've said about Shifu meaning master. Oogway means tortoise. He has cousins named Poe has cousins named Dim and Sum. Dim Sum is a type of meal, a Cantonese meal where you have a lot of little dishes. It's like Chinese tapas. And I just love that one's dim and one's like these little tiny details, like for Chinese speakers, really make the movie.
Yeah. It must be weird for like actual Chinese people watching the movies in like the Mandarin dub. Because for them it's just like the character's called Dumpling, you know? It's not, and Master Oogway is just literally called Master. Did they change Shifu's name? Because you can't have a character called, like his name would be Shifu, right?
Yeah, maybe they picked different characters. I don't know.
Maybe, I don't know.
But I also know that there's, that the names are an interest. Yeah, I need to actually watch it in Mandarin and see what happens because a lot of them just have Chinese names like Po, Ping, right? Li Shan.
What does Po mean?
I need to see
Panda?
the character because Panda is Xiongmao, which literally is cat bear.
I
Bear
guess they couldn't
cat.
call him that. That would have been a bit hard to put in
I
the
would have to
packaging.
see the character like for what Poe they're going for. It would be hilarious if the Poe that they picked meant to break or damage something. That would be hilarious. Like Po, like right? Like, well, the Shoji Pola, like my phone has been damaged. That would be hilarious if that was the Poe that they picked. But I'm guessing they're gonna pick something else. I wish his name was Dumpling though. Isn't it hilarious that his like birth name is Lotus? Because Lotus is this Buddhist sign of inner peace and meditation and longevity and no need for excesses such as food and drink. And then Poe is like just the opposite of that, of this like Lotus, what that name would mean for him. So I thought that was really funny. That his original name is Lotus.
Apparently, Poe means soul.
Oh, okay.
Or can mean soul.
Well, that's exciting.
That would kind of work, I guess. He's the soul
looking it
of
up,
the
I'm
movie,
trying to get the right. I'm trying to get the right character, but I'll have to look that up later. Huh? I should have actually just looked up everyone's name. I
there's
don't
a lot
even
of
know.
names. What does Ping mean, Mr. Ping?
Ping also, like I said.
Is it the same Ping as in ping pong?
Doubt it. I doubt it. There's a lot of pings.
Does it mean good dad? I hope it does.
Ping can mean like level, like something is level or grounded. It could also mean peaceful. Probably it's Ping meaning peace. That's the most likely.
Noodle.
I had a Chinese teacher named Ping, and it means peace. So could be what it is. Definitely, I don't think it's the ping pong ping.
Yeah.
Also,
how do you think about how they made all the peasants be either
also
pigs,
the best
sheep,
thing about ping pong
is
it's the two characters that look exactly the same, but the bottom is a little different. So it's like ping pong. It looks like literally
that's great.
passing it back and forth.
Yeah.
And it is named after the sound that the ball makes when it hits the paddle. Ping pong, ping pong. That's how ping pong was named. Also known as table tennis for you.
That's what we call it in Germany.
Yeah, I know that's the Western. That's the Western European way to say it. Anyway, I'm sorry. I got off talking about Chinese characters.
We got sidetracked a whole bunch. I have been cancelled for my opinions about the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy.
I mean, that's what happens when. This is why I only go live once pseudo monthly because.
Shouldn't have even gone through the hassle of having me on. It's just not worth it. I'll just say something.
It's worth it. I love having you as my buddy to banter with.
I'm very excited about your outcome. Maybe we can move straight into the plug section because you said you wanted to keep it under 2 hours. I'm very excited about the teenage shows.
I'm really excited about that too. So did you have any...
I'll have to find, because I watched a lot of garbage when I was a kid.
Oh, me too.
But
we'll have time to... Everyone will have time. We'll keep in touch about what we want to talk about. There will be lots of talk
about the old Disney Channel shows like Hannah Montana and
there's ping pong, the characters from ping pong. I like it. It looks like someone's staring at you in a weird way.
It does.
So final thoughts before we go into plugs, Yogi. Do you have anything else to say? Or final thoughts, before we go.
Well, I guess my final thoughts would be to urge anyone listening to this who hasn't seen the Kung Fu Panda movies to watch them immediately, because they might sound stupid because they're called Kung Fu Panda and they have Jack Black being a panda who learns Kung Fu.
Yes.
And the trailers are all awful. Like the trailers for the movies
trailers do not do it justice.
Suck. You can tell that they were made not by the people who made the movie. But the trailers make the movies look like what you think the movies are based on the title. But they are actually very good. And you should all watch them because they have a great message about inclusivity and diversity and believing in yourself. They have great fight scenes, animation, great music, and they will make you cry if you have a human heart and a functioning brain. That's it.
But only if that. Yes. Yogi, thanks for picking this topic. This is something that, like I said, I had seen the first two, but I hadn't seen the third. And you know what? I love the first especially so much that it was exciting to rewatch these.
I'm glad you liked them because it would have been awkward to talk about them for 2 hours.
Me sitting here, there's Chinese symbolism, I guess, Yogi. God. You picked the China stuff just because it's me. No, I really enjoyed this topic, and this
strongly
is really great.
I mean, not really underrated in the sense that there's not a lot of I just feel like a lot of people have seen them and liked them, but I don't think enough people talk about how great they are. There's always people talking about Moana or How to Train Your Dragon trilogy, but Kung Fu Panda is up there with some of the best in Western animation that we have.
I think so. Yeah, I totally agree. So yes, everyone, please definitely watch this. Watch these movies. Kung Fu Panda is awesome. We've had a really great time talking about it. So let's do some quick plugs and then we will say goodbye. Yes, like I said, taking a break for April for Buddy Banter. And then I'm coming back in May for my birthday month, which means I pick the topic, buddies. You get to banter about what I want to talk about. So we are going to talk about movies that we were obsessed with during our teen years. I'm going to talk about Degrassi, Supernatural, and Charmed, most likely. So that's going to be very fun.
Yeah. I will have a really hard time narrowing it down to just 3.
I think
I watched a lot of TV.
You can do more than that, but this is like the 3 ones you're going to talk about. But Lo also mentioned Vampire Diaries. Unfortunately, we're probably going to talk about that as well.
I'll just pick the ones that were specifically things I watched as a teenager, not stuff like SpongeBob SquarePants or Phineas and Ferb that I just still enjoy and have always enjoyed.
SpongeBob SquarePants.
More stuff like
I'm on my 10th Degrassi rewatch. You can still like it now, but something that when you were a teen was like the shiz.
I like
yes. Micah's excited for my Supernatural takes, and I too am excited to share them with you, dear listeners. So Yogi, once again, tell them about you, where to find you, what you got coming up.
Well, you can find me on YouTube as Through the Moondor 2 words. You can find me on Twitter at Yogi98. You can find me on Twitter also at Troy Sivan Pod, which is the Twitter account for it's kind of my brand Twitter because I only post the links to my episodes for my Troy Sivan podcast. And that's about all. And you can also get my podcasts on Spotify and Anchor and Google Podcasts and all those other platforms. I don't have anything that I can plug just now. I don't have my guests or my topics for my next Through the Moondor picked out, but I can promise you that it will be great. And your
latest episode was really great.
Yes, I did one with Kelly, aka Jaded Redhead.
Ships for Brains.
It's called Ships for Brains, and we talked about how George R. R. Martin writes about boats in A Song of Ice and Fire, and it's fascinating and it's great.
I learned so much about ships and then forgot it the second I was done with that episode. So I'm sorry, Kelly. I tried to retain the information. I really did. But wow, was that a lot of... It was so interesting to me, though, because I know nothing about nautical anything. So
I'm just so
it was
fascinated
really
by
nice.
how George R. R. Martin knows so much about so many things.
Yeah, if only he would stop fat-shaming the cogs, then it'd be fine.
Yeah, they will have their redemption in The Winds of Winter, though. We talked about that on the stream. The cogs will rise again, harder and stronger.
Harder and stronger. So, like I said, I have more coming up. So, Buddy Banter, like I said, I'm taking a break for April, but still working on my main content, which is A Song of Ice and Fire, His Dark Materials, Avatar: The Last Airbender. And have you heard of the Poppy War? Have you heard the good word of the Poppy War?
The Poppy War?
Have you heard of it? The Poppy War is an amazing trilogy that I am forcing my friends to read so that they can enjoy my content. I'm going to have on Lo the Links. That's right. Links Fire content coming at you again, people.
Oh,
it's going to be great. Love a good Links Fire. And we're going to be talking a lot about gender in the first book. So we are going to be talking about just the first of the 3. So if you get the chance to read the Poppy War, but not necessarily the other 2, you're still good. You can enjoy our content, and we will give you warnings if we're going to do content previews for the second or third book. But until then, Yogi, thank you for being my buddy, and thank you for bantering with me. And now you are officially inducted into the unofficial organization of Buddy Banter Buddies. You are you're up there with Micah, Lo the Lynx, and John Webster. You are now part of the club.
There's a group that anyone would be proud to be part of.
Yay!
I might never be a knight of Kira, but I can be a buddy.
You can be... Well, anyone can be a knight of Kira if your love for her is pure. Anyway, so
I will not get into my opinions about Kira Knightley. I've already been cancelled.
I will cancel you myself.
No, she's fine. I don't hate Kira
like
Knightley.
I said,
I don't.
Like I said, next Buddy Banter is May. And I'm probably going to do June as well, coming back where I do have a friend. Who will it be? Who will be next? We don't know. I have a list, and only I decide.
Aren't you going to run out of friends at some point?
I have about 10 people on the list right now, and those are people that have said they're willing to do it. And I haven't asked a lot of people that I'd like to have on. So the dream would be to get my best friend that I've known since middle school on, Jenna, to talk about something. That would be the best. Would be interesting, because she's not a content creator, but we are in a platonic partner relationship. So she's my Jenna.
Oh, boy.
So that would be great. All right. So please,
John
everyone.
Webster just sent me a very passive-aggressive winky smiley.
Careful, Yogi.
I'm on thin ice.
So please check out Yogi. All of his links will be in the description, which I'm going to add after this because, like I said, we were doing Zoom, and then Zoom hates us, so now we're doing StreamYard. Yeah. So this was, I need to copy and paste all of the links that you can find Yogi, all of his stuff in the description. Please check out Through the Moon Door. Please check out a podcast called Troy Talk that I believe is going through the discography of Australian-born pop sensation Troye Sivan. I can't believe I remembered that.
Australian living pop sensation.
Australian. Yeah, sorry. South African-born Australian pop star.
Troye Sivan.
Pop sensation. Troye
exactly.
Sivan. Yes. So he's got a lot of great stuff. So if you like music, if you like, and you can check that out. And then if you like Song of Ice and Fire, you've got Through the Moon Door. So once again, sorry, I swear I'm leaving this time. Thank you very much for joining us for Buddy Banter. And Yogi, thank you for picking this amazing topic and talking with me about it. And we will see you next time.